Mute was finally heading home and felt a sense of pride once again. He began to dismiss the negative thoughts and focus on saving the people of not just Bulwark, but the entire country of Jagrin. As he approached the main gates of Bulwark, there were hundreds of peasants huddled on the sides of the roads, cheering and chanting, "Hail to the elites!" The feeling was electric. The powerful wooden doors swung open for the elites of Waxon, and an uproar of commoners, merchants, and military personnel filled the town square. Mute and the men rode towards the barracks and stables to put everything away and equip themselves with their ceremonial garb. As Mute trotted with his horse to the wooden stable, one of the commoners yelled at him, "Bless you for achieving the Purple Hue. We are now saved." Mute looked over to see a short woman with a pale face and bony features, wiping the tears of joy from her eyes. He gave her a wholehearted smile and a wave. While Mute began tying his horse up, Nylax approached him from behind. "It seems as though your demeanor has changed from earlier." Mute looked over, grinned, and walked over to Nylax. "Aye, my boy, and this is just the beginning. We will be in the presence of Duke Waxon himself to present our gift to him." Mute instantly got a rush in his head and felt a hot sensation. He looked at Nylax, pointing at him and at himself in a static motion. "Yes, all the elites who participate in the raid will be called to be honored in the royal courts of Waxon. I suggest you clean up and acquire your armor." Once Nylax walked away, Mute shifted his direction to the stairs, which led to the third story of the barracks. While walking, he passed by other elites who celebrated with gestures, handshakes, and smiles. Everyone in the barracks was feeling the same sensation. When he approached his chambers, Mute heard a familiar voice. "Must feel nice to be acknowledged for once, huh?" Mute turned around and saw Tirade leaning against the wall, wearing his undergarments to his ceremonial garb. He continued, "I haven't forgot about the, we'll say, mishap. Although Nylax has recently become fond of you, I'm still your superior, so don't get any ideas of usurping my position." Mute started to feel his happiness wane and motioned towards his doorway. "Nonetheless, today is the day to be remembered as the heroes of Jagrin. Go get ready and see why we are the elites of Waxon." Tyrant smirked as he leaned off the wall and entered his chambers. Mute closed his door, took a heavy breath, and moved towards the washroom. He could still hear the bombardment of excitement from the people outside as he began to undress and organize his belongings. While getting ready, a knocking noise came from the door. Mute walked over, opened it, and saw a female servant with towels, soap, and a bucket of water. "Hello, sir. I've been requested to deliver these items to you." Mute blushed a little from the sight of the woman. She had jet black hair, fair skin, and blue glistening eyes that captivated him. Mute quickly made a hand gesture to halt the woman and rushed towards his writing supplies. He began to scribble his thoughts down and handed over a note that read, "People call me Mute, and I can't talk, so here's what I wrote." Mute gleefully handed the note to the servant. She began to crinkle her face into a confused expression. "Oh, interesting. Well, here's your supplies. The ceremony will begin noon. Mute's smile slowed into the scrunching his face as he looked away for a few seconds. He then took the supplies and closed the door in a quick manner. He rubbed his temples on his head and groaned a little as his anxiety began to spike, thinking to himself of how he could have handled that engagement better. The elite rushed over to the washroom to get cleansed and dressed. When he was fully cleaned, Mute put his undergarments on and walked over to a giant wardrobe. Twisting the knob, he slowly opened it with a loud, creaking echo that filled the room. Inside, he found his metal brass gauntlets and greaves that reflected bright light. The hefty steel pauldrons sat at the top of the rack with the enclosed winged helmet that displayed colors of black and gold. The chest was an elegant steel that puffed outward. When he had configured all the pieces to his body, he threw his golden cape over his purple linen shirt and the breastplate, which was decorated by the insignia of the crown. Mute took a good look in the mirror, gave a loud sigh, and rushed out the door. Once he met up with his fellow elites outside the barracks, the people were still cheering in the plaza. Nylax organized the elites and shouted to the crowds, "On this day, we will celebrate the deeds of these courageous and selfless men. Because of them, The Purple Hue has been retrieved, and we can now cure the land of this sickness and bring this kingdom prosperity once more. The crowd roared as weeping and shouts rumbled the earth. The people of Borwick could now be healed. The elites of Waxon, led by Nalax and Tirade, create a two-line formation and marched their way to Waxon's palace. As they entered, Mute saw a giant arch decorated with a woven tapestry that displayed the history of Bulwark and Jagrin. Etched across were men carrying swords and heading towards their new home citadel on the fabric. Once each man passed through the archway, they placed their winged helmets on their heads. They marched for half a mile, as the perimeter of the palace was massive, and they were heading to the royal court. As the group entered the large wooden gates that stood 10 feet above their heads, they entered the Duke's domain. The extravagant palace was designed with marble and had a ceiling that had translucent stained windows that shone the sunlight into the center of the court. The elites entered and marched to a halt, standing 6 feet away from the stairs. In unison, they kneeled to the barrack master. The room was silent until the sound of footsteps approached the throne. Duke Waxon was taking his seat, his marvelous purple cape ruffled across the marble stairs. He slowly sat down and cleared his throat. Bring me the flower. The barrack master motioned towards Tirade and took the flower, wrapped in a white cloth. The barrack master then knelt before Duke Waxon and extended his hand towards him. My liege, as per requested, the authentic Purple Hue is now in your possession. Waxon leaned forward and slowly, with fidgeting fingers, grasped the flower. The Duke's hands became more sensitive, and the flower began to illuminate, almost as if it was speaking with him. Waxon gazed into the complexity of the Purple Hue. Mute suddenly looked up to see Waxon idolizing his prize. Duke Waxon's face was in awe of this flower's potency, which seemed obvious just by handling it. Never in my life have I seen such a flower that takes my breath away, Duke Waxon whispered. Excellent work, my elites. You've done a great service not only to me and my people, but you've also given me closure to Reiklin and the Duchess's death. Waxon continued. Who is to be rewarded for the extraction of this Purple Hue? Nalax slowly rose. Sire, it would be my most humble and honored decision to appoint Mute as the chosen hero. His quick thinking, companionship, and impeccably executed plan of diverting the village should be noted in our historical records. Mute once again felt the rushing sensation that his body had been harboring. Does Nalax not know that Tirade was the one who actually pulled the flower from the soil? Tirade, in the front row, clutched his gauntlet and raised his head towards Nalax and Duke Waxon. Although unseen, Mute could feel the utter betrayal and rage that Tirade possessed. Furthermore, my second-in-command, Tirade, also played a crucial role in the extraction of the Purple Hue. I believe both these men deserve a reward for the heroic and honorable actions by your decree, Duke Waxon. Waxon used a commanding voice to announce, Mute and Tirade, ascend. The two men slowly stood up and walked to the front of the stairs. It appears that the accolades of the incursion will be split between you. However, only one can be blessed with my authority. Mute, you seem to be new in this order. What is your current rank in the elites? There was an awkward hush that lasted for a couple seconds. Well, are you not going to answer your lord? Waxon said, rising from his seat with an annoyed face. Mute began to sweat and tried his best to muster the words coming from his head. Nalax immediately disrupted the parley. Sire, to be blunt, Mute is a disabled man with a past that prevents him from articulating his inner thoughts. Hence the nickname all of us give him. Duke Waxon looked over to Mute and back to Nalax. Have my standards for the elites of Waxon declined? Will we now be accepting the blind and the crippled into this core? Duke Waxon shouted. Nalax chimed in. There is a reason why he still exists in the Supreme Group. His actions, not his words, dictate that his deeds are honorable, sire. Duke Waxon had heard enough of this insult. He turned around and said, Clearly, Tirade is the one to be commended for his actions, and unlike this mute person, he can perform the basic skills of discussion. Kneel, Mute. Mute knelt down, feeling an utter sense of devastation. As for you, Tirade, I would like to speak with you on some accommodations. The rest of you may leave. The elites rose up and walked back to their barracks. As the group returned to their quarters, Mute could hear Tirade's and Waxon's laughter echoing throughout the halls. He felt a sharp feeling of shame. When the men eventually returned to their individual quarters, one of the elites came up to Mute before he entered the doorway. "Way to make this ceremony about you," scoffed the elite. Mute, without looking back, pushed through the doorway. He looked out the window to see an empty plaza. The crowd was gone. He placed all his belongings back in the wardrobe and closets. Mute slowly laid down on his bed to try and sleep everything away.